Yeah, hi. My name is CB Strul. I'm a sci-fi author. I have an indie sci-fi publishing company called Odom's Library. My first book was called The Ancient Ones, and it takes place about 100,000 years ago. It's about a young woman who escapes into the desert after her people are essentially massacred by another tribe, and then meets an ancient alien, and they learn to communicate with each other through music and go and try to save her clan. The second one, which is coming out on December 3rd, is called Connectivity. I'm very excited about it. It's about a single mother named Seti Nivan, about 200 years from now, living in a place called Clearbridge National City, where I guess we would call it a corporation state, where all the people that work there, that live there, are employees that play video games that actually affect the real world around them. While she's climbing the corporate ladder, she is struggling to connect with her son, JC. So Seti meets another employee and starts talking to her, and is given this program called Connectivity that supposedly will help her reach out and communicate better with her son.
What inspired connectivity?
Oh, the gaming part of it was a huge deal for me back when the idea first came up. It was about man, I've been working on this for more than a decade. So yeah, I really love video games. I love The
Yeah.
Legend of Zelda. I love Mario. So I I just got this little tickle in the back of my head that was like, yeah, okay, it's really cool, this idea that maybe work could be more fun if everything was built around video games and you didn't feel like it was just a slog all the time. You had goals that really worked out, and you could feel like you were getting high scores for every little task that you did. And then one night I was on a couch hanging out with an old friend of mine, and this other thing clicked, which I can't really talk so much about, but like you got to read the book, and then maybe down the road I'll talk about it because it's kind of like the heart of the novel, the mystery of the novel. But I was just like, I've never seen that. I've never seen that in a piece of popular entertainment at all. So yeah,
It's really cool how ideas just come to you and it's like, yep, I haven't seen this. This is going to be would be really good to write about and include.
absolutely.
What drew you to writing in the first place?
Mm. Um, Going way back, as a child, I really got this bug to be an actor when I was little. And it came from Robin Williams and my realization that he was actually not the characters he was playing, but the actor, a real person who was portraying these characters. And from that, I think I developed a sense of like the fact that I was watching a story and not really not watching something that was real, of course. And I probably was only like 6 years old at the time. So I was just starting to like watch movies in general. Any book that I picked up, I was like, this stuff isn't real. It's cool. It's just cool. And like eventually I started putting ideas down. I think I was about 13 years old when I really started kicking into writing. And at the time, I thought I was going to be a screenwriter, and I've been screenwriting for most of my life. The novels have really only come around since COVID, but that was out of necessity. And I honestly like I can't believe that I didn't do it sooner. But feeling like I didn't have the time necessarily was a big factor. Working on screenplays feels very different. Like you you have a lot of space. It's more of the blueprint. So I Connectivity was a screenplay before it was a novel, and I definitely built off of the bones of that screenplay, but it's much more well rounded now. Yeah,
I guess when you always see something as when you're a child and you're like, yeah, and as readers, like have to like, I could dive into this world or I couldn't, I feel like writing my own world as well. How did going from taking the bare bones to the actual novel, how was that process like? Was it different to writing, say, the ancient ones in your process since you already had the foundation?
yeah. Okay. So interestingly, the ancient ones, I had a screenplay. I but I wrote the screenplay right before the novel. For Connectivity, I had the screenplay already in place prior to COVID. So that one I transformed after COVID, or like, yeah, I transformed it from something that existed before COVID to something afterwards. The Ancient Ones, they just came back to back. So it really was like just putting the blueprint together and then writing the bigger thing. Connectivity was a little bit more, and I think you feel it in the book. It was truly a movie in the first place, and it feels that in the novel. It moves like a movie moves. It feels more consistent with the character building in the way that a movie would, where it's like we just don't have as much time. We don't have as much time to get this information out there, and so then I, obviously tried to build up some characters that like DC the computer definitely gets more character than he had in the original screenplay for it.
What is your process like going with your writing your book? How do you sort of start your writing process?
Um, okay, so I got, I guess, a couple of different ways to talk about this. The first one I'm going to say is the day to day, because that's the one that occurs to me most immediately. Is I will sit down and I will take what I have. I write on these big mantra journals, and I can pull one out for you. I think. Let's see. So sorry to be showing you my bums. Like not big mantra journals, and I'll
I
just write. I'll just write and write, handwrite in these tiny fonts, and um, and then the next day I will go and pull out my laptop and I will pick up where I left off from what I hand wrote. I'll type that up the next day, so I have a little jumping off point, so that then my creative juices start to flow. I've got music playing, and then I'll come right back to this book. And if I've done some editing in the process, that's good, because sometimes you miss words, or you put something there and you're like, what was I even thinking at the time? But then I'll swing back around to the book itself, and I'll just start free writing again. And knowing hopefully where I'm going with it, I feel like it builds a really cool continuity from the mid edit period back to the creative period again, and back and forth and back and forth. Um, as far as the initial development of a story, I'll sit with a concept for a very long time, sometimes for years. And like, okay, there's a spark there. I can't forget about it because it's so strong within me. But then one day the right little twist will occur that makes it sing. And if that doesn't happen, and I'm just sitting with it, and I decide, okay, I just need to write something, and I have this strong thing here, and then I just try to do it, maybe something new will occur. But with Connectivity, it was really cool because that was the really maybe one of the strongest twists that I had up to that point. And I think that it's a very, very powerful story because it has so many facets to it. So yeah, I highly recommend considering when you're writing a story, um, having that original thing and allowing something else to take shape within it, finding something else and figuring out how the two can fit together.
You need to sort of have layers to your story instead of just like it being based off one sort of not fleshed out idea, I guess. You need to have a bit more depth to it as well to make people want to read it as well.
Exactly.
How do you go about your character building? Because I know you said that you had it in Connectivity, it's much more fleshed out and it's like it would be in a movie. How did you go about doing your character building?
Yeah, so Connectivity, right, is about Setty Navon, who's a single mother, her son JC Navon. There's an aspect of obviously like my own life experience of my mother son relationship, but also like witnessing my the development of my relationship with my fiance and her mother and her own relationship, and those kinds of things, like they lend themselves to good storytelling where you can pull from life without pulling truthfully, like, or directly from life. Seeing how the emotional core of their relationship might be built, the foundation of it. So for instance, if somebody feels like they're not able to communicate very well and they exist in your real life and you can see them struggling to communicate on a regular basis, uh, there's a real strong character there because either they do understand that what they're lacking or they don't, and both of those things can veer off in radically different directions. So the story itself could go in radically different directions because of it. I'll say this actually because it is kind of a strong important thing about connectivity specifically, that this setting of on character, when I was developing it, when I was developing the story, she went to a place originally that was drastically different from where she goes in the final novel. She got more negative, and I was searching for the truth of the character, and maybe it was a little bit too much of my uh history with sci-fi and popular media, like the backdrop of Brazil, the Terry Gilliam film, or which is what's it 1984 and a half, the 8.5 joke that he made when he was making that movie, and the negative influence that can happen in a dystopian, utopian, whatever context of sci-fi. With connectivity, there's a dystopianness to it, utopianness to it. It's kind of muddled, and what the character feels about that and how the character works her way through it is drastically different than how the characters in Brazil or 1984 might have dealt with their issues. And I had to come to terms with that myself, that there was a more positive message that could be gained than the one that just says, "Oh, corporations are just going to destroy everything and everything is lost."
Yeah. And I guess the basic having the foundation with the relationships make people connect to the characters as well, which is what you sort of really want and inspire to have happen with.
Absolutely.
How did you go about your with world building? I know it's set in the future as well. So was there anything that you sort of just had to imagine what it could be like in the future, or did you pick something and just completely change it?
Yeah, so connectivity in particular was very easy to build the world for, because it was based around that video game social structure, the corporation state. How would a corporation try to entice its employees to live a better life while still wanting them to be boxed into what they're doing? And that like informed basically the entire shape of Clearbridge National City, which is where the whole story takes place. There's of course more to it than that. I When I was working on the screenplay, I actually had a director and a pair of producers who were involved with me, and we were going to make the movie before COVID, and they pushed me in a different direction than what I had initially anticipated. I had thought of more of like, okay, well, things have gone awry in some capacity. Maybe it was more because of the corporations than it was because of climate. No, we wound up pushing more for climate while I was working on the screenplay. So you can feel all the climate changes, which affect my other stories too, in this novel, and it works pretty well. I'm really glad that it wound up going that way, but it definitely was an adjustment because I had the collaborators involved in the process.
And I guess the collaborators make sort of you have to meld ideas together as well. So it's not just like all your ideas. You've got to actually listen to other people as well, which can be a bit difficult sometimes.
Yeah, it's definitely takes some training of the mind.
Yeah. Yes. How has publishing, and writing and publishing books changed the way you see yourself?
um, yeah, I guess I feel differently about myself. I feel an additional kind of strength within me, that when I was screenwriting, and I'm a bartender by day, and so I'll bartend and I'll screenwrite and I'll take the time, the days that I have off, which I intentionally make sure that I have multiples of, and I will really just work on my writing. But when it came to working on novels instead of screenplays, I found that there's an additional strength there, that there's a fulfillment where the concept is what comes from it is the final thing.
Mm.
And when it's a screenplay, it's just a blueprint, and I you don't ever feel that finality, like I did the whole thing and it's done. You feel like, okay, when's this person going to pick it up? Are they going to do it justice? How is this person going to portray this part? Granted, I would love to have Connectivity become a movie after all of these years, because it was supposed to happen in the first place. But I feel strongly about knowing that I've been writing in this way now for so many years. I feel like a more fulfilled person, certainly.
And I guess you also have the knowledge that people are actually picking up and reading it, and like that instant sort of people talking about it as well, which is really good.
Yeah,
Sooner than what
yeah,
could happen with the screenplay as well.
absolutely. Yeah.
Are there any books or authors that inspired you when you were writing or to write as well, especially when you're younger?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously Tolkien, J.R.R. Tolkien. Love the Lord of the Rings. Have read it several times. Um, Isaac Asimov. I still find novels or short stories of his that I've never read, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. This is really interesting. That and he was doing that a while back, and Madison, my fiance, and I, we have been reading or have read a lot of the majority of Ursula K. Le Guin's novels, and definitely take a lot from her work. Um, I think it maybe with Connectivity specifically, you could see a little bit of influence from Orson Scott Card, because there's the video game side of things, the Ender's Game side of things, and I really love Donna Tartt, who is not sci-fi at all. Did The Secret History, a really complicated novel called The Little Friend, and The Goldfinch, which she won the Pulitzer for. But I love to read, and I definitely pick up from different authors their vibes and everything, like Arthur C. Clarke and Philip K. Dick and all of these greats from the science fiction world. Yeah,
I guess you'll take inspiration and sort of bits and pieces from our authors as you're reading as well. It's like I like the voice of from here. I liked how they did the world building here too.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And in fact, I subscribe to, and hopefully I'll keep subscribing. Well, they raised their prices, so I got to figure it out. To New Scientist Weekly, and I absolutely recommend just getting that, because it's worth it. You get it every week, and they always have really cool like storytelling shaping around the true science that's happening in the world. And if something's wrong, then they know that, and they show you that in the next issue, and you get it real quick. And it's like it takes you outside of the realm of like, oh, I'm just looking at the internet all the time, I'm just on social media all the time, and you separate and you read the words and you go like, okay, huh. And I definitely have taken inspiration from many articles in New Scientist for my sci-fi work.
That's really, really cool. I think people forget about sort of articles and everything as well that could help with writing. It's like all like fiction sort of based instead of like you can take it from anywhere.
Hmm.
What advice would you give to a writer working on their first book?
Yeah, just write every day. just
Mm.
I know it's the oldest cliche in the book, but just write every day. Sit down, write it. It might be crap, you know, and you'll find out in the end if it's crap or not. And that doesn't mean that it's a done deal. You might pick it up one day in the future. There's some fun. Okay, like with the Ancient Ones, when I got around to writing that as a novel, I definitely have seen growth from that novel to Connectivity. And I
Mm.
think the Ancient Ones is still a really cool book. But for me, what I want to be, the way I want to be telling stories, I think Connectivity certainly was a step up. And I want my audience to be aware of that, and to know that when they come into the book, that it's a slightly different level of entertainment. I think it reads more smoothly.
Mm.
So the only way that I could get there was by writing the first book. And I know that there's like a million authors out there that have a first novel that just sits in a shelf somewhere and is never going to see the light of day. And I didn't want that for the Ancient Ones, because I think that could be a cool movie in the future too. So I wanted it to be out there in the world. But Connectivity is a whole different animal, you know?
You're always going to improve it book after book, and you need to write that first book to actually see the growth in your writing as well. Or
Absolutely.
do you have a favorite writing snack or drink?
I go all over the place because it depends on the time of day. So
Yeah.
coffee till cocktails, so like uh, I'm a huge coffee fan, and we actually subscribe to a number of different coffee companies. We have Phil's, which is fantastic, and we like to get different beans, so they just send us random ones for all these companies. We have Stumptown, and we started getting La Colombe, and they're really fantastic. We have gotten Blue Bottle in the past. That the like just we do cold brew. We do cold brew, so we just set it and forget it, and then it's good to go when we finally come around to it. But if it's a little later in the day that I'm getting to my writing session, then I might have had some rum, um, or this is a Negroni right here, a popular gin drink.
Always good to have drinks based on time.
Yes, exactly. For me, I know for you, it's the middle of the day. It's nighttime here in California. Yes.
Time zones are sometimes very confusing.
Yeah, absolutely.
You touched on this earlier that you listen to music when you write. What type of music do you listen to? Do you listen to just instrumentals, or do you have ones with actual lyrics?
I make full-on playlists through Spotify. Some of my favorites, I could list a million of them. There's Ludovico Einaudi would be an instrumental one. And I'm sure anybody who's watching this probably has heard something of his. Andrew Bird is really good, kind of more folksy stuff. Sufjan Stevens, like, it's very emotional. I love Sharon Van Etten. She's very powerful and really okay. Contextually, this connect. I'm on connectivity publishing, but I'm well past connectivity writing wise at this point. I am almost at the end of writing my sixth novel, and the fifth novel way like it takes heavily from Sharon Van Etten. And definitely worth your time checking it out. If you David Lynch uses her stuff a lot in the newer Twin Peaks that he did. The Flaming Lips for sci-fi enthusiasts are the best. You know, they're so spectacular. But yeah, I do all sorts of stuff. The Duder, just very calming if you need to be calm. But yeah, full on playlists. My most recent one for the sixth book is over 300 songs long, and it just happens as it
Wow.
happens. Yeah,
Yeah. It's very good. You need music to help you write as well and set scenes and get in the mood. So but
it's
it has to
beautiful.
last the length of time that you're doing writing too, so you don't have to keep picking songs.
Exactly. I learned this from Moby. Um, the artist Moby, he was putting out these ambient albums, and he has this one that's ambient sleep, and it's like 4 hours long, and it's like, well, I hope that it lasts until you're asleep. That's
Yeah.
what he wants from it. It's like just enjoy it. And like, okay, I hope it lasts as long as I write.
Yeah. The way to go, go with it. And my final question is, who's the biggest supporter of your writing?
Oh, it's easy. It's Madison is my fiance.
Mhm.
Yeah, she's always going home about letting me take my time, however long it takes to work on it. We read together, so I'll read out loud to her, or she'll read out loud to me. So whenever I'm working on a new project, as I go along, I'll read the next phase of the book to her, and she'll give me notes, and she'll in a way she'll be like an early editor for me, and I really appreciate that from her. But she also just really likes the stories, and that makes me feel good.
That's really good. It's always good when the people closest to you actually read and enjoy your writing too.
Totally, totally. I'm not blushing. You're blushing.